We're here today in the halls of the University of Guelph, and I'm with an associate professor. She's in the Department of Business, as well as the College of Management and Economics. That's a very impressive title, Dr. Sara Mann. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
What do you do, actually?
So I'm a professor at the University of Guelph, and I teach strategic human resources and organizational behavior, in addition to doing OMAFRA-funded research on HR in the ag sector.
We hear a lot in the media about this shortage of talented labor coming up in the future. Is this an issue that is relevant to agriculture?
Sure. I mean, I think that there is a shortage of talent in many industries right now. And from my experience, there is a shortage of talent in the ag industry. But I think that one of the major challenges when you're dealing with HR in the ag industry is that all HR issues that people think are specific to the ag sector are not necessarily that specific. And I think that we need to broaden our thinking of HR issues when it comes to agriculture and look beyond things that are working or not working just in the ag industry. It's something called evidence-based management, and it's the idea that companies take findings that have through research, academic research, and employ them in their organizations, what we know to be the best practices. And from my experience, the ag sector has not done a good job of that yet. So I mean, that's the bad news, but the good news is that there's a lot of opportunity to make very big differences when it comes to HR, and honestly, I think it wouldn't take a lot of work.
So it sounds like, would you argue that a farmer spending money on developing human resources and human resources strategies is a good investment?
There's no question. I mean, I've trained quite a few farmers in supervisory type courses. I've had lots of conversations. I live on a farm, so I understand the situation. I think the biggest challenge is convincing farmers and owners, supervisors in the ag sector that spending money on HR is worthwhile. And in all industries, I mean, it's something we struggle with all the time, is trying to convince companies in all industries that it's worthwhile to spend money on HR. Because when you're trying to measure the impact or the success of an HR practice or policy, it's very difficult to do that because there's so many other confounding variables. And we find it difficult to show that there is a direct relationship between HR and the bottom line. Because I mean, I think of it as a chicken and egg question. If a company or a farmer spends or devotes resources to HR and then is profitable, were they profitable because they spent money and devoted resources to HR, or is it because they're profitable, they can afford to spend more money on HR? So it's very difficult to answer that question, but I can certainly tell you that research tells us that spending money, devoting resources to HR will result in workers that are more motivated, more committed, perform higher on the job. You'll have less turnover. Making the direct connection between that and the bottom line can be more difficult. But to answer your question, I think it's absolutely of critical importance. And anecdotally, I can tell you I've seen examples of where it really makes a difference.
We hear human resource specialists talk about a concept of talent management being integral to the engaging of employees. Is this a concept that is relevant to agriculture?
In all industries, we want our employees to be motivated, to perform highly on the job, to be engaged. Will talent management do that? Of course it will. You know, I mean, there is no question that spending money on hiring, attracting, selecting, and then retaining the best employees will result in improvement in profitability. And if you don't spend money on talent management, I don't think you will ever really be able to understand or predict or influence how your employees will behave, and you will not be able to attract and select and retain the best people.
Agriculture may have a bit of an image issue here. It's an industry like a number of other industries that are focused on minimizing costs. Potentially the work may not be perceived as being very exciting work, maybe not that many opportunities for advancement. Some companies are using a strategy called employer branding. Would that work in agriculture? Have you heard of that working in agriculture?
First of all, we use the term strategic HR. And from anybody that doesn't know what that is, I mean, you would just kind of fluff it off and think it's HR, but it's not. It's strategic HR. And what that means is that using HR practices, aligning them with the strategy of your organization. So if you're a farmer and you have an operation with very unskilled jobs that you can afford to have high turnover, doesn't take a lot of training in those positions, then it may actually be very strategic for you to not spend a lot of money on HR. You know, obviously from a legal perspective, you need to do the things that are going to cover yourself. and you want to be ethical, of course, but at the same time, it may not be strategic to spend a lot of money on HR. So I think it really depends a lot on your operation, on the size of your business, on what types of positions you have, as to whether or not it is strategic to devote money and resources to HR. Now, if you are the type of company where attracting and selecting the best employee really would make a difference, so if you have a very specific skill set that you're looking for, a very skilled job that you're looking to fill, then you need to brand yourself as an employer that you want to devote money and resources to HR to try and attract and retain the best people.
I have heard of a lot of farmers complaining that the main drivers that are retain employees or find employees typically are salary, right? Great salary, great benefits, things that farmers claim, I can't afford that.
Okay, I completely disagree with that. Okay, so I think that for a farmer that has that argument, I would say, yes, you need to pay fairly. Because it's something called equity theory. People are constantly comparing themselves to other people. So if you have an employee, you need to pay them fairly relative to other people within the company, but also relative to other positions that they would have access to. But once you've paid them fairly, there are a lot of things that you can do aside from offering a high salary that will motivate and encourage your employees to perform highly on the job. We know that research tells us that supervisors, managers, owners, they often underestimate the importance of intrinsic motivation, so feedback, feelings of accomplishment, telling people that they're doing a good job, continuous coaching, and that doesn't cost money. But it does take some training for people to realize that that's an important thing that they need to look at as a supervisor or manager.
We'll have to leave it there, Sarah. Thanks for taking a few moments to speak with us.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.